Welcome back, Geordies. It's Adam from Two for Joy to give you my match reaction to Newcastle's 2-1 defeat at the Etihad last night. And we'll start off with the positives, and then we'll talk about some of the officiating and the negatives in this game. And I'll be quite honest, I thought 90% of that team last night played fantastically well. I thought it was a really valiant display from a Newcastle side that have travelled, a round trip of, I think it's 10,000 miles in the last week, flying out to Karabag. And I'll be quite honest, I thought they put in a real shift. Nick Pope was unlucky with the first goal from O'Reilly, gets a hand to it, but obviously not a strong enough hand. And I've seen people criticising him, but honestly, some of the saves he made in that game, they kept us in it. They seriously kept us in it. The one from Haaland and Foden, the double at the end, it's kept us in the game. And the same, I've seen some criticism of Kieran Trippier, but for a 35-year-old to be playing 3 games a week and putting in a shift like he did yesterday with no backup, no cover, there's no one to sub him off for. I thought he put in a really good display. Malik Chow, I thought, was fantastic. Dan Burn, a real leader on the pitch, and I felt like there was an air of frustration from Newcastle, like Dan Burn shouting at Elanga to take the corner rather than Lewis Hall. There was definitely an air of frustration, but I thought Lewis Hall, and I'll say this, I don't say this lightly, I genuinely believe this kid is the best left back in the Premier League. And I don't mean English left back, I mean left back as a whole. I think this kid is absolutely fantastic. The ceiling that Lewis Hall has is phenomenal. And my only worry with this is that we were able to keep hold of him and tie him down to a long-term contract. And I'll do a video on this later on. But it's wages and what Newcastle can offer. But I felt the midfield 3 I thought were really good. Jacob Ramsey, Sandro Tonali, and Nick Voltemade. And I'll come on to Nick Voltemade a bit later, but I thought he put in a real shift. Joe Willock out on the left. I mean, they've kind of swapped back and forth between him and Jacob Ramsey, but I thought Joe Willock was all right. He might have been at fault for not picking up O'Reilly when he comes in and scores the second header. And then Anthony Gordon up front and Elanga. And I feel like Elanga didn't have his best game. And I think he'll be criticised for this. But it's moments. In those fine moments, he doesn't make the right decisions. And I think it's more down to his decision-making than his effort. And then Anthony Gordon up front. And again, Anthony Gordon, he ran his socks off. But I didn't feel like that was his greatest performance. And I felt like it's another game where it's all talk and no substance. And this kind of brings me on to, we'll talk about Nick Voltemade, Anthony Gordon, this system. And what really annoys me with this is Anthony Gordon, and I get people saying it's not about the positions they play, it's about getting the best out of the team. Anthony Gordon is not a number 9. And while it might get the best out of the team, the chances it creates means that we don't take, or we're not as clinical as we could be. And while Anthony Gordon scored 4 goals against let's be honest, a subpar Karabag in Azerbaijan, he created very little yesterday. He had a few opportunities where I felt he could have pulled the trigger earlier, and he almost wants a gimme. He wants a literally played across to him so he can just tap it in, but he doesn't get in the right areas because he's not a number 9. And as far as Nick Voltemade, I thought Nick Voltemade put in a real shift yesterday. And there's 3 or 4 times where Nick Voltemade plays some outstanding passes. He plays Gordon through twice. The one over the top where he takes on Mark Gahey, and I feel he should have pulled the trigger quicker. And the one down the line where Ruben Diaz puts his arm around him and just bundles him to the floor. But Nick Voltemade, where I have a problem with this is Nick Voltemade playing as a number 8. Now, Nick Voltemade to me is a number 9. That's what he'd be bought in for. In my opinion, you don't buy a centre-back to play right wing. You don't buy a centre midfielder to play in goal. So what it suggests to me is we bought the record signing for this club as a number 9. And now we've realised we kind of don't like his profile as a 9 in this system with this manager. We're going to play him as a number 8. Now, Nick Voltemade could be a 9. He could be a 10. In some systems, he could probably even push off slightly to the side and play off one side. But in my opinion, Nick Voltemade is not a number 8. He is far from a number 8. And we look like we're trying to make Joel Linton 2.0. That is not Nick Voltemade's skill set. And he might not have the pace of an Anthony Gordon or the press of an Anthony Gordon. But that doesn't make him a number 8. He's a forward. He's a clinical finisher. And if you give him the chances, he will score. As we saw at the start of the season, as we see for Germany, as we saw last year in the Bundesliga. But he doesn't get provided service. And I think the service is the key point of this. And then moving on to my favourite topic, officiating. So I pulled up some clips yesterday and twice Omar Mamouche was sent through offside, and both stills show he was a foot and a half offside, and the lino kept his flag down. And this was in both halves. Both linesmen kept the flag down. Allowed Man City to continue the phase of play. One, O'Reilly puts the ball past the post. The second one, Anton Semenyo has a blocked shot. And then the flag goes up. But I counted 4 times yesterday. Anthony Gordon was sent through twice, given offside the finest margins. Harvey Barnes was sent through. The flag goes up and he looks a foot onside. If I can find it, I'll put the still on here. And Jacob Ramsey. Now, I shit you not, this referee that put the flag up for Jacob Ramsey, you'll all know him, the guy with the big beard and the muscles. Genuinely, this guy has put a flag up looking 40 yards across a pitch at Jacob Ramsey. And I shit you not, I think VAR could draw the lines and not be sure how tight this fucking call is. But he puts his flag up immediately. He puts his flag up before Jacob Ramsey has even received the ball. And my problem with this is Man City were allowed to continue the phase of play to see if they score, and then they'd review it on VAR. Every time with Newcastle, it was flag up immediately. And then on to the fouls. Joe Willock, professional foul on Bernardo Silva. He pulls him back, yellow card. Harvey Barnes, professional foul on Matthias Nunes, pulls him back, yellow card. Immediately, yellow card. Referee straight out the pocket. Nico O'Reilly literally throws Malik Chow to the floor on the halfway line. Free kick's given. He then impedes Trippier by pushing him off the ball and stands in front of the free kick. No yellow card. Kustanov drags Joel Linton to the floor. No yellow card. Phil Foden, unbelievably, 94 minutes, go and watch it. Phil Foden holds Joel Linton by the shirt and kicks his ankles until he goes down. No yellow card. These margins in these sorts of games are what actually make a difference, because if we look at Bernardo Silva, who talked his way into the book, 5 minutes, or not even 5 minutes, 30 seconds later, that free kick's pumped forward. Kieran Trippier putting the ball in. And Bernardo Silva, not looking at the ball, runs straight at Dan Burn, lifts his full body weight off the floor and hits Dan Burn chest high. Now, if that isn't endangering a player's... if it isn't violent conduct, I don't know what the fuck is. Genuinely, it's absolutely fucking appalling. And then again, the even bigger issue, and I know this is coming up as a topic now because of what Eddie Howard said in his press conference. The offside for Dan Burn when he scores the disallowed goal for being offside, where he's pushed by Ruben Diaz, and you can see it clear as day. Do you think Newcastle will get an apology from PGMOL? Because VAR looked at that exact instance to make sure he was offside. So they will have seen Ruben Diaz push him and yet didn't review it. And my problem with this is the same thing I have with basically any small club that comes up with fine margins to a top six Premier League team, the Big Six team. And I've got a video coming out on the finances, and it's the same thing with the officiating, because what I'm honestly saying is the top Big Six teams bring in the revenue for the Premier League. They bring in the broadcasting rights. They bring in the sponsorship. They bring in everything. So they're protected. And they're protected by favourable decisions. I'm not saying it's corruption. I'm saying decisions are the rub of the green go to the Big Six teams. In this game, all of those decisions go to Man City. And I genuinely think after watching the shit we had at Aston Villa, with an abomination of refereeing and the fine margins in this game, Newcastle should have walked away with points yesterday. I felt like maybe Man City had some more clinical chances, but Newcastle did enough to walk away with points yesterday. And we were the better team in the second half. Manchester City looked nervy. Looked absolutely nervy. And I've got to give credit to Eddie Howe because I think he got everything right with this. I think the system, personally, I think it needs tweaking in order for us to get the best out of Voltemada. And I feel like what annoys me is how rigidly stuck to this 4-3-3 we are, and how I get you believe in a process, but sometimes you need to break that process in order to get the best out of a player. And I feel like Nick Voltemada, we might not get the best out of him. And he may end up not fulfilling his potential purely down to the fact that we haven't given him the opportunity with the right environment for him to score goals. And that's not saying this system's bad, this system doesn't work, or Nick Voltemada's fucking the problem. What I'm saying is, if that wasn't the profile of striker that Eddie Howe wanted, we shouldn't have signed him. We should have signed someone who fitted the profile of Alex Isak, and everybody would go, oh, well, Ekitike was available, but, you know, we didn't get him because Liverpool bought him, and we didn't get Isak, and, you know, we had no other options. There are loads of options, and people won't like it, but Nicholas Jackson is more in the profile of Alex Isak. Florian Balogun is more in the profile of Alex Isak. Even Dominic Calvert-Lewin is more in the profile of Alex Isak. And what I would say on the transfer side of things is we're yet to see fuck all from Wissa for a £50 million fee. But having watched West Ham yesterday, Callum Wilson looks more threatening, and we let him go on a 3. And the point being, I think he scored like 5 Premier League goals and a cup goal or 2 cup goals. Callum Wilson's got like 7 goals this season. Johan Wissa's got 3. Only 1 in the Premier League. So there's some frustration, but not with the performance. I thought the performance was really good. I thought we can be proud of holding Man City, who I would say are the best team. And if I'm honest, I look at this and think that win for Man City probably is the turning point that possibly leaves them at the end of the season winning the league. Because this heaps the pressure right on Arsenal today against Spurs in the London derby. And they either need to come out and glorify this dominance or Igor Tudor might just turn them over. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. I don't want it to be too negative, but the officiating was poor, and we'll wait and see how things go. But I think we can take some positives into the next game. I think we'll carry some momentum. Like I say, 3 away wins on the bounce. A narrow margin defeat, which I feel like should have been a draw. And home games to come. So like I say, let me know in the comments, like and subscribe, and hopefully guys, I will see you in the next one.